Wherever you go, you look up and you're towered over by this huge, complex structure. You wonder, how did this structure even get here? Who even made it? Well, structures and buildings prior to being built start on a much smaller scale, allowing for minimal room for error. Hello, I'm Gavin Gayle, and I did my internship on architecture and construction. Meet my mentor. My mentor was Ken Todd. A little bit about Mr. Todd is he's the owner, founder, and CEO of a well-known company by the name of TKR Construction. TKR Construction is located out of Los Alamitos, right across the street from Los Alamitos High School. Most of their work is completed in Costa Mesa, Huntington Beach, and Rossmore, which is located around Seal Beach, Los Al area. Mr. Todd has been an architect well over 20 years. Throughout his career, he has majored in architecture, however, recently has switched over to more general contracting area. I got this internship through Mr. Boone on a spreadsheet from a past student who was actually interned with Mr. Todd, who also played baseball by the name of Luke DiStefano. I reached out to Mr. Todd in an email with my resume and cover letter, expressing my needs and wants and hopes that I would have in job shadowing him, which he replied in the next day, expressing that he would love to accept my offer and take me under his wing to show me a little bit more about his career and in a day in the life. What exactly is architecture and construction? Well, architects focus more on the structure and science of a building, as in how much weight can a certain beam hold before it is deemed unsafe. Both take concepts that these individuals have, such as home remodels, and create them into real life. Architects are the ones who more plan behind it, and construction workers are the ones who carry the process out. Architects plan buildings such as buildings and hospitals, and construction workers develop structures. Architects focus more on the math side, whereas construction workers focus more on the hands-on physical side. Overview. So throughout my internship, I learned a ton, and I mean a ton. Just in the first day was 2 hours and 30 minutes, and within that day, I was able to do a mock interview, see 2 homes that were currently under construction, go to a meeting in person alongside Mr. Todd and shadow him, as well as tour his office and learn a little bit about sets of plans. Now, sets of plans are these large sheets of paper that are very wordy and very mathy, but yet they're pretty easy to break down. They usually express a change in a structure, such as a room in a home, and a remodel, and lays it out using CAD. 2 CAD specialists at TKR Construction were by the names of Jason and Josh. It was crazy watching them work, the way how quick their fingers moved to move these lines to show these floor plans and blueprints. CAD also draws these layouts into scale, so for every quarter inch would equal 1 foot in real life dimensions. I was able to attend meetings with Mr. Todd as well. I found it very interesting the way he can conduct his meetings, but how simple and quick they were. On the very first day, the meeting that we were able to attend was out in Rossmore. This couple were both teachers, and they wanted to add a hallway so they did not have to go to their son's room to get to the bonus room. Mr. Todd already had their floor plan pulled out and came up with a little drawing that he thought that the individuals would like. He proposed the drawing to them, and instantly they fell in love. What I liked about this was that he was able to show his little design that he liked, and it ended up matching with theirs, kind of almost as if he was a designer. So he gets to put his little flair onto what he's building if the clients approve of it. Also, I was able to sit in an in-office meeting with him where he sat with one of the CAD specialists, Jason, and he called one of his clients. He already visited with these clients before and brought his floor plans and made all these edits that they wanted to make to their master bathroom. However, when he called, they wanted to make even more edits, where he proposed his ideas and they gave feedback in which he can make even further changes, which Jason would then take into CAD to make the new floor plan. And I even learned about sets of plans where they show, like I said, the layouts and kind of have the dimensions and really flat out can tell someone the process that is needed. And there are these things on a set of plans called the stamp of approval. The stamp of approval is by the city, which is needed prior to going into the building process and is one of the basis for starting the process. I even got to visit current work sites. I think I visited around 4 or 5. However, I focused on 2, which are seen in both of these pictures. This house had a add-on to the garage on top to a second story, as well as wanting to add a courtyard. So seen in the image with the selfie of me, I'm in the expanded bedroom up top with the Jack and Jill bathroom, which I'm located in. And it was really cool to see the process through these 2 months that I was experiencing it. But the way it starts off is, since the garage is not meant to have a second story, it has to be torn down before being added on to in this whole process. But it was great to see the transformation that it took place. Moving on, a process that I learned was how to scale a set of architectural drawings and find the square footage of that. So step 1 is to be able to read the scale. There are 2 conversion factors on each side of the architectural scale. Architectural scales can be found in Walmart, Amazon, Home Depot. They range for about $10. There's flat architectural scales like seen in the picture, or triangular architectural scales with more conversion factors. Now, it may be confusing since there's 2 conversion factors. However, there's a 0 next to each conversion factor that lets the architect know what number to use. So, for example, the 3/8, as seen in the red in the upper right-hand corner, the 0 is touching the line, meaning all the numbers closest to the line belong to the 3/8 conversion factor, whereas the numbers further away from the line, as seen in the blue, the 0 is a little bit further away from the hash mark, meaning the bottom numbers are going to correspond to the conversion factors of 3/4. Step 2 is placement. So once the architect has their set of plans, they are going to want an area that is very large and easy for them to move around in case they need to get better angles to measure and scale the drawing. It is best recommended that they use a hardwood floor or table, since those are very easily accessible by most individuals in most areas. And again, sets of plans can be found from construction's past companies, clients, or even online from a place like floorplans.com, which offer free floor plans. Now, the architect is going to want to identify the scale. So on each set of plans, as seen here in this example, usually in the bottom corner like seen here, but it can also be anywhere on the page, especially near the top, it will say what the drawing is scaled to. So here in the bottom corner it says scale 1/4 inches equals 1 foot. So what this means is that every 1/4 inch is equal to 1 foot. This is very important because when scaling you want to make sure you're using the correct conversion factors to get the most accurate number. Step 4 is matching the scale. So now the architect has identified the scale of the floor plan. They are going to want to match the scale to their architectural scale. Doing this allows for minimal error, and if the scale on the floor plan is 1/4 inch, then the architect is going to want to scale with the 1/4 inch on their architectural ruler. Step 5 is alignment. So once the architect has identified the area they are wanting to scale, usually a box, they are going to set the 0 of the 1/4 in this case to the inside of the line that they're scaling. The reason being is because lines represent walls, and wall thickness does not apply to the length or width or total square footage. And a fun fact is that wall thicknesses are usually about 5 inches. Now the architect will scale to the opposing side and line that they want to scale to. They will mark the closest hash mark to the opposing line. And again, they are measuring to the inside of the line due to lines being walls. Most of the time, the line is going to fall in between 2 hash marks. So the architect in this case will always round down. The reason being is because inches can be added on but not subtracted. So here the architect will make a V mark. To make a V mark, make 2 diagonal lines from the bottom of the line, up, right leaning, and left leaning. The reason using a V mark over a straight line is because it gives a center point for the architect to mark at. Now jot down the area, which in this case it is 27 and 5 feet. Step 7 is calculation. So the architect is going to move the scale to the opposing side, in which they will set the 0 to the inside of the line like seen on the projector camera, which will be in my final presentation. And as the scale is in the inside, the architect is going to count the small hash marks to the right of the scale. Now the reason they're counting these right small hash marks is because they represent inches. So in this case, the 4 inches are counted, meaning the 4 inches is going to be added to the final total of the 27.5 feet to give the total width of this garage, which was scaled to 1/4 inch, of 27 feet and 9 inches. Now moving on to find the square footage, the architect will repeat the same steps 1 through 7 to find the length. So instead of going vertically, they are now going to find instead of finding the horizontal length, they are going to find the vertical length. And the exact same process has occurred. This can even be done by the architect moving the paper the same way that they had it, but moving it the opposite way to scale the exact same way. And they will also section the floor plan into boxes. The reason being is because the boxes are extremely easy to add and measure instead of trying to measure a triangle. A square, to find the square footage, it is just simply length times width. So after the architect has sectioned into boxes and made all their calculations, they will now label their different boxes on a sheet of paper with length and the width. And they want to note each length and width because it will be used later in the calculations. And it is easiest to use separate boxes on a separate piece of paper because it is most appealing to the eye and visually easy to see and understand what you are doing. Now the architect is going to times the length by width, like seen in the previous slide, of each box. Once they have come up with a total for each box, all these numbers will be added together, not multiplied, added. Once the numbers are all added together, this will give a final square footage of the area that has been scaled. And the architect has to remember that square footage is represented by ft to the second power. And that is how an architect can find the square footage of scaling a drawing. Moving on, would I personally choose this as a career? If I had to choose between construction and architecture, I would definitely choose construction 100%. The reason being is because I like the building side more than the math side. Even though I'm pretty good, and not to be biased, but I'm pretty decent at math, it's just very complicated and seems very time consuming, whereas construction, building seems more fun to me. And my overall experience was amazing with Mr. Todd. Like I mentioned before, the process that I learned, being able to go on in-site visits, and again, here's the garage with the extended top being built, and I got to see the process that it takes, and I had great experience meeting new individuals, communicating, sitting in on meetings, seeing the progress of homes, seeing how homes are demolition, such as different groups of contractors coming in to do the demolition. Mr. Todd made the experience a ton of fun and unforgettable. It was extremely easy to work with him, and he was super cooperative with timing. Especially with me playing baseball, it was hard to come up with times. However, he made it easy, whether it was before school on days I didn't have zero period, or late in the afternoons when he was still at the office out in Los Al. It was even more amazing because I got on-site experience, which made it 10 times easier for me to learn. Thank you for your time and attention.